session of the High-Level Committee is called to order. I am pleased to inform you that, following consultations in the Bureau, it has been decided to designate Mrs. Dalia Salkauskine of Lithuania as chair of the working group cum rapporteur. I look forward to your full cooperation so that the working group can complete its work on the two draft decisions of this committee smoothly and successfully. May I remind you that the working group will work all day on Thursday, the 3rd of June, and conclude its deliberations on Friday morning. Its report will thereafter be taken up at the plenary session on Friday afternoon as item 8 of the committee's agenda. We shall now continue the general debate on items 2, 3, 4, and 5. We have 22 speakers listed for this afternoon's meeting. May I again remind delegations that the list of speakers will be closed this evening at 5 p.m. I now invite Her Excellency Mrs. Helena Philippe, Director General for Multilateral Affairs of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Paraguay, to make a statement.
This 20th session of the High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation brings us together in a difficult time for humanity in general and for the developing countries specifically. Paraguay continues firmly in looking to join efforts and resources to respond together to the needs of people and makes it its own to leave no one behind. Every country has specific challenges on its path towards sustainable development, but the international community has recognized that the most vulnerable countries need special attention. Amongst those, we would include countries like my own, which are landlocked and developing. South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation in the same regard allows us to exchange views on the most diverse areas and to complement national efforts to respond to the needs of the people. We are sure that this is a vital tool in overcoming the very difficult moment of the pandemic because of COVID-19. However, we cannot deny that given the very nature of the modality, many of the bilateral programs were impacted due to budgetary difficulties, due to the need to re-steer monies and resources to deal with the current circumstances and put activities in a virtual mode. However, we will continue to join efforts to be flexible and innovate and achieve results. As so well said by the Secretary General in his report, the pandemic of COVID-19 has created a socioeconomic chaos, and not just in the world, but in my country, not just due to social economic contraction, but also the effective paths of cooperation have been challenged, not just because of the numbers, but because of the very fabric of society, which is unraveling with especial negative effects and sustainable and long-term effects for the most vulnerable populations. Financial contributions to palliate the adverse effects still mean that there will be a hard path ahead. And this is why it's important for developing nations, but also developed countries, to hear the call for the construction of effective multilateralism, capable of rebuilding a more solidary society and a more inclusive one. I could not conclude without mentioning that Paraguay is in the process of developing its second national voluntary report on implementation of 2030 agenda. This recollection of a participatory and plural construction reflects the efforts and the goals of sustainable development and demonstrates the achievements in different areas, such as social protection, combating poverty, or innovation, but also it identifies the debt and difficulties in crucial sectors which persist and which mean that our goals are still far away. This is why we have proposed to continue consolidating partnerships in the conviction that international cooperation for development is the best alternative in the quest for solutions. With regard to this high-level meeting, as we reaffirmed in the final document of Buenos Aires, we ratify our support and we once again urge the participation of member states in transparent and inclusive consultations to continue improving and promoting cooperation, South-South and triangular cooperation, mobilizing resources and convening, amongst other things, roundtables and interactive dialogues with the view to highlighting recommendations for the General Assembly. Finally, we would urge the adoption of more specific measures for states on the path of cooperation given the current health crisis, without losing sight of the goal, which is to achieve sustainable development of all of our countries. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Paraguay, and I now invite His Excellency Mr. Cristian Jara, Executive Director of the Agency of International Cooperation for Development of Chile, to make a statement.
I'd like to extend my greetings to the chair of the High-Level Committee of South-South Cooperation in the United Nations, and ladies and gentlemen, delegates and heads of delegation of countries present here today. Today, the world is living a complex moment. We all know this. We find ourselves in an adverse scenario. The pandemic caused by COVID-19 and its consequences have stretched states' capacity to react and to respond to the increase in demand for assistance to protect and safeguard the health of all of our citizens. As an international community, we all have the duty and the responsibility and the urgent call to heed this call for action in a collaborative manner, making international cooperation for development something that can assist public policies which are related to mitigating the pandemic by sharing experiences, technical resources, human capital, and innovating in this complex context. But also, if we all work together, I'm sure we can overcome it soon. And this is how the Chilean Agency for International Cooperation for Development, which it's my honor to serve as executive director, we, the agency and our international partners, have focused on this. In this instance, I'd like, on behalf of the agency, to renew Chile's commitment with South-South cooperation, not just to renew traditional commitment with South-South cooperation, but also in our full awareness that this is a tool and a public policy which is necessary and of great value, of high value, to meet the challenges which bring the different states together here. Moreover, I would call for a more flexible view and look at the binational funds, which have been very successful and have allowed countries to connect from very different latitudes. For example, in the area of mitigation and in grappling with natural disasters, Chile developed with Japan the Kizuna program, which managed to train more than 5,000 professionals in Latin America. We know that cooperation is a dynamic tool, but it's also a way to provide continuous development. And in connecting with each other, these variables of dynamism and flexibility and innovation become long-run dynamics. Today, in the midst of the pandemic, mitigation of the health effects and associated consequences is what we must grapple with. And today, there are other challenges such as climate change, which will follow and last, hunger, poverty, gender issues. In other words, there are many dimensions that are being addressed by the Agenda 2030. Chile is once again committed, as I said, And our call is that we all act together and that we internalize the idea that only working together will we be able to have shared benefits and public policies which are of greater added value for our respective governments. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Chile. I now give the floor to Her Excellency Mrs. Rita Hernandez, Director of International Cooperation of Costa Rica and President pro tempore of the South-South Committee of ECLAC.
Ladies and gentlemen, we extend our cordial greetings from Costa Rica. It's a pleasure to be with you virtually. And it's important to support the meeting on South-South cooperation. I thank, as the chair of the South-South Committee, it's important to address an issue which is dealing with the health crisis, which is a result of COVID-19. We have to have new paradigms for development, putting people first, promoting multilateralism, cooperation, and international solidarity to accelerate achieving our goals. The pandemic has shown that the development model is, the interpreter apologizes, but the sound quality does not support interpretation. And
además, ha dejado patente que se requieren muchos recursos para la reconstrucción de los países y la región, tanto locales e internacionales como públicos y privados. Y es en ese sentido que la cooperación internacional adquiere relevancia y pertinencia. Las graves consecuencias sanitarias, sociales y económicas que han provocado en el sistema internacional incertidumbre, vulnerabilidad y turbulencia también se trascienden a las metas de la Agenda 2030 y al cumplimiento de los objetivos de desarrollo, retrocediendo en lo avanzado, por lo que es urgente aunar esfuerzos para volver a la senda de su cumplimiento. Para ello, espacios como este sobre la cooperación sur-sur se suman como un instrumento para planificar los próximos años en los que debemos trabajar en conjunto y solidariamente para avanzar en la recuperación económica y social. Es en este contexto que la solidaridad ha surgido como una pieza clave para la recuperación. Salir de esta pandemia en forma airosa solo podrá lograrse mediante un esfuerzo a nivel mundial, regional y nacional. Es en este sentido que el Comité Sur-Sur de la CEPAL, que preside Costa Rica, es un espacio propicio para profundizar el diálogo con miras a una cooperación más efectiva y para enfrentar los efectos de la pandemia en todas las esferas de la sociedad. De igual manera, crear puentes y acercamientos con todos los mecanismos y espacios de cooperación sur-sur y triangular para alcanzar el logro de ese objetivo. Una de nuestras preocupaciones es el financiamiento de la cooperación. Es el momento de la reconsideración de criterios de medición y transformación del desarrollo y en ese sentido se trabaja en una propuesta de medición que permita una voz común regional de cara a las discusiones globales de acceso a la cooperación internacional. Esto como una medida que permita visibilizar lo que hoy muchos de los países de la región enfrentamos, la clasificación como renta media, limitándonos a acceder a fondos de la cooperación, aunque aún enfrentamos dificultades para el financiamiento de políticas y programas. Realidad que trasciende a otros de los países fuera de la región. Uno de los principales aportes de la Agenda 2030 para el desarrollo sostenible es que redefine el desarrollo de una perspectiva multidimensional. Para la totalidad de los países, dispone una narrativa transversal de sostenibilidad, de inclusión e igualdad, y establece principios y valores fundamentales que orientan las acciones para el logro de los ODS. En nuestra presidencia, proponemos una acción distinta de política para abordar las necesidades de recursos, los desafíos de la deuda y la década de acción para los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, a lo que sumamos los objetivos de la Agenda Regional de Desarrollo Social Inclusivo. Quisiera destacar que entre los puntos mencionados, la necesidad de aliviar la deuda de nuestros países y de fortalecer la cooperación regional, mejorando la capacidad crediticia y de respuesta a las instituciones financieras regionales, subregionales y nacionales y los vínculos entre ellas. Señoras y señores, este es un momento importante, es un escenario para un compromiso colectivo de la cooperación global y en los que debemos articular esfuerzos para reducir los efectos negativos provocados por el virus. Es imperante ampliar y profundizar el intercambio de información sobre las experiencias de cooperación sur-sur desarrolladas por las regiones del mundo para fomentar el intercambio de conocimientos y tecnología en temas de interés mutuo. Tenemos el compromiso de alcanzar los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, así como los que plantea la Agenda de Desarrollo Social Inclusivo, que está en peligro ante las circunstancias globales. Los esfuerzos aislados son insuficientes y es urgente buscar estrategias que agilicen el logro de los ODS, considerando el valor agregado de la cooperación sur-sur y triangular, como medio de implementación de la Agenda 2030 y complemento de las formas tradicionales de la cooperación internacional. El momento es ahora para avanzar hacia un nuevo paradigma de cooperación internacional, mediante una reconstrucción efectiva, resiliente e inclusiva, a partir de la premisa de un renovado espíritu de solidaridad global, regional, y no debemos desaprovechar esta oportunidad. Un futuro justo e igual para todas las personas y países debe ser el foco de la gobernanza regional, internacional y global. Y eso solo es posible desde la cooperación internacional para una recuperación verdaderamente solidaria. Muchas gracias.
I thank the distinguished representative of Costa Rica, and I now invite His Excellency Ambassador Demetrio Bueno Carvalho, Deputy Director of the Brazilian Cooperation Agency of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to make a statement. Tem a palavra. You have the floor.
Obrigado, Sr. Presidente. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the serious challenges facing the developing countries regarding the implementation of the 2030 Agenda are exacerbated in many regions of the world by the COVID-19 pandemic. Many expectations regarding South-South and triangular cooperation raised during the Buenos Aires conference in 2019 have yet to be met, and the coming years will demonstrate our ability to find solutions. On the other hand, the preparation of developing countries for the post-pandemic recovery phase requires the adoption of simultaneous measures in different fields, including education and public health services, scientific research, and a revitalization of the economy. In all these fields, developing countries need to invest in institution building, human resources training, and expanding mechanisms for knowledge generation and innovation. It's an unequivocal demonstration of the multidimensionality of development, an environment in which both South-South and triangular cooperation are well positioned to act, precisely because it's carried out from a perspective of integrating factors that promote structural transformations in developing countries. Brazil sees this 20th session of the High-Level Committee as a key opportunity to propose an agenda of stronger support for South-South and triangular cooperation, and in this regard to present progressive proposals that could serve as a platform for achieving tangible results. In this regard, the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, UNOSC, is not just another actor in the field of South-South and triangular cooperation. UNOSC constitutes the centerpiece in the design of initiatives linked to the main thematic axis covered by the final document of the Buenos Aires Conference in 2019. In the sense, we need UNOSC to lead us in generating a new and robust strategy regarding the follow-up to the Papa Plus 40 conference in the UN system and beyond, including a post-conference action plan. We need it in the promotion of the mainstreaming of the South-South and triangular cooperation in the multilateral system, a matter that has been discussed in the United Nations for at least 2 decades preceding the Nairobi and the Buenos Aires 2019 conferences. We need to seek innovative actions that would allow the mobilization of the United Nations member countries, UN agencies, and most importantly, maybe this time, other actors, such as the private sector. More ambitious levels in South-South and triangular cooperation will require additional sources of funds, given the increasing fiscal difficulties of public actors. The private sector can play a substantial role in the mobilization of new resources, innovative experiences for South-South cooperation, and in supporting knowledge networks, as long as, and it's important, as long as sustainability criteria and the principles of this modality are observed. We should be more proactive in exploring new mechanisms for mobilizing private resources for development, taking advantage of the ESGs, environmental social governance, emergence in the business world. And the UNOSC can and should play a more active role in harnessing this significant moment. If you wish to be more impactful, more actions are also required at the UN system. The UN Secretary General should be more involved, proposing concrete initiatives with the UN system funds, programs, and specialized agencies, governing bodies, with the aim of promoting the effective integration of South-South and triangular cooperation as a means to implement multilateral cooperation. In this context, the opportunity to associate the promotion of South-South and triangular cooperation with the now underway process of reforming the operational activities for development of the United Nations system should not be missed. The search for greater efficiency and effectiveness of the system would have an important asset in the South-South and triangular cooperation in terms of an extensive collection of good practice, designed and validated in the light of the circumstances of developing countries, in addition to the lower operational costs. Mr. Chair, for Brazil, triangular cooperation is characterized by partnerships on a horizontal basis and guided by South-South cooperation principles, seeking to join efforts to facilitate the exchange of knowledge, technology, and experience for the benefit of developing countries. Triangular technical cooperation initiatives are based on the comparative advantage and the effective participation of each partner, both in its political and strategic dimension. Its technical and operational composition guaranteed by the existence of governance spaces and shared management. All this provides an appropriate policy approach and a joint reflection on the partnership efforts. In this regard, it's worth mentioning that Brazil signed with UNOSC in August 2020 an umbrella project of Brazil-UNOSC cooperation for the promotion of triangular South-South cooperation. Through this partnership, the Brazilian Cooperation Agency provides technical guidance for the Brazilian participation in the board of directors of IBSA Fund, India, Brazil, and South Africa, in order to support the selection of projects sponsored by these countries. In addition, Brazil made suggestions for the next UNOSC strategic framework, and it should be noted that UNOSC could contribute to the integration of the triangular South-South cooperation as an implementation modality within the United Nations system through the preparation of reference materials, guidelines, and guides in relation to South-South cooperation. Finally, I would like to underline that Brazil is actively participating in the construction of both the agenda and the final declaration for the meeting that will take place in Matera on June 28-29 with the G20 foreign affairs and development ministers. This meeting will discuss contributions on strengthening international efforts to contain the pandemic effects on lives and livelihoods, and on how to build back better. There is an international consensus that food security and sustainable food systems are key to ending poverty, encouraging social cohesion and community development, thereby reducing socio-economic inequalities both between and within countries. In this context, in the context of the G20 summit, Brazil is proposing the full use of South-South and triangular cooperation to achieve the goals of food security at the global level. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Muito obrigado. I thank the distinguished representative of Brazil for his statement. And I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Ali Dian, Permanent Representative of Guinea, on behalf of the Group of 77 and China. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the Group of 77 and China at the opening ceremony of the 20th session of the High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation. At the outset, I would like to congratulate Madam President as well as the other member of the Bureau for election to lead this high-level committee. I also would like to express the support of the Group of 77 and China in the work that come ahead, and we look forward to working closely, actively, and constructively with you and members of your Bureau. The group reaffirmed its view of South-South cooperation as a manifestation of solidarity among peoples and countries of the South that contributed to their national well-being, national and collective self-reliance, and the attainment of internationally agreed development goals, including the Sustainable Development Goal. In this regard, as mentioned in this Nairobi Acton document and reiterated in the Beipei 14 Acton document, South-South cooperation and its agenda have to be set by country of the South and should continue to be guided by the principle of respect for national sovereignty, national ownership, and independence, equality, non-conditionality, non-interference in domestic affairs, and mutual benefit. At the same time, we reiterate that South-South cooperation is not a substitute for, but rather a complement to North-South cooperation, and that financial contribution from other development countries should not be seen as official development assistance from this country to other countries of the South. There are merely expressions of solidarity and cooperation. Mr. President, Mr. Chair, it has been almost 5 years since the High-Level Committee, which is a key policy-making body of the South-South cooperation in the United Nations system, held its last meeting. This session will be the first high-level committee following the second high-level United Nations Conference on South-South Cooperation, BP 14, held in Buenos Aires in March 2019. The high-level committee on South-South Cooperation is held this year in a special conjuncture. Not only it is the first session after the adoption of the landmark action document for BP 14, but also it is held as the global community is facing a global crisis due to the COVID-19 pandemic. 5 years after the adoption of the 2030 agenda, decades of development gain have been undermined and in some cases reversed. The COVID-19 pandemic has now made the achievement of the sustainable development goal difficult for many countries. It has threatened multilateralism and the advancement of South-South cooperation. The impact of the current pandemic and the effort to contain it jeopardize the achievement of the 2030 agenda and the sustainable development goal. South-South and triangular cooperation continue to contribute significantly to the implementation of the 2030 agenda for sustainable development and to achieving the overarching goal and of eradication of poverty in all its forms and dimensions. Yet, the gain of our collective effort in the global south are now compromised. We are facing exacerbated challenge and new vulnerabilities, prompting the need for urgent action at all levels and by all stakeholders to achieve the sustainable development goal. Our country are comprehensively impacted in the medium and long term due to the fragility of our health system, limited social protection coverage, a widening digital divide, and vulnerability to external shock. The discussion of the high-level committee during this week will be an opportunity not only to take stock of the progress made in the implementation of the paper 40 outcome document, but also an opportunity to highlight the importance of South-South and triangular cooperation in the recovery from COVID-19 pandemic and to raise the awareness of the international committee of its continued relevance. Furthermore, this will provide opportunity for countries of the global south to create space for sharing their successful early policy measures and experience in containing the spread of the pandemic and in mitigating its social and economic fallout. The group says this opportunity to reiterate its commitment for the implementation of BP 40 autumn document, especially in the context of the COVID-19 that requires unwavering solidarity and international cooperation more than ever. The group called upon the United Nations Development System to continue announcing its support to South-South and triangular cooperation at the request and with the ownership and leadership of the development country. We acknowledge the significant work by the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation in this regard. The office has been crucial in building network and increasing awareness across the United Nations system and among development countries of the various forms and instances of South-South cooperation, helping our effort to grow. The group also would like to recall the importance of triangular cooperation and acknowledge that triangular cooperation is aimed at facilitating, supporting, and enhancing South-South initiative through the provision of inter-area funding, capacity building, technology transfer, and well as other forms of support as the request of development country in line with the principle of South-South cooperation and must be led by the country of the South. We reaffirm the importance of learning and sharing the best practice, including through North-South, South-South, and triangular cooperation. Furthermore, we recognize the important role of the South Center of the think tank of the country of the South and emphasized its importance in enhancing South-South cooperation through promoting solidarity and mutual understanding among the country and people of the South, as well as providing the intellectual and policy support required by development countries for collective and individual action in the international arena. Also, the group recognizes the significant contribution of South-South cooperation in the area of trade and its ability to promote sustainable development among development countries. And in this regard, we reaffirm the importance of strengthening South-South trade cooperation arrangement, including preferential trade and investment arrangement and the global system of trade preference among developing countries. In this connection, the relevant United Nations organizations, including UNCTAD, must continue to support developing countries in deepening and enlarging South-South trade integration, regional, sub-regional, and inter-regional economic integration and cooperation arrangements. The group reaffirms the commitment to promote a universal, transparent, rule-based, open, non-discriminatory, inclusive, and equitable multilateral trading system under the World Trade Organization, and were determined to work together to further strengthen the WTO and fight all forms of protectionism. The increasing importance given to South-South cooperation globally shows that it is increasingly imperative that the United Nations Development System contribute actively and tangibly to the agenda and purpose of South-South cooperation. The Group of 77 and China would like to express its appreciation to the UNOSSC as the articular for South-South cooperation in the United System and its leadership for being an all-around and responsible partner with the group, and for playing a critical role in creating, advancing in the construction of the much-needed multilateral South-South support architecture. The group also appreciates the countries of the South who have stepped up their cooperation with United Nations or SSC, which has also announced its role and impact by upscaling and in terms of financial, human, and budgetary resources for the achievement on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The group strongly believes that South-South cooperation offers opportunity and support our effort to strengthen international cooperation to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the main multilateral consensus which reaffirms the global development commitment and call for complementing national efforts to achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Finally, we are confident that under your leadership, the 28th session of the high-level committee will be a success, and hope that the view and concept of the G77 and China will duly incorporated in its deliberation. I thank you, Mr. President.
Merci, Excellence. I thank the distinguished permanent representative of Guinea on behalf of the G77 and China. And I now invite His Excellency, the permanent representative of the Arab Republic of Egypt and chair of the Peace Building Commission, Mr. Mohamed Idris, to make a statement. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Excellencies, it's my pleasure to address the 20th session of the High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation in my capacity as the chair of the United Nations Peacebuilding Commission. And allow me first to congratulate my dear friend, Ambassador Maria del Carmen, Permanent Representative of Argentina, as the chair of the committee, as well as the other members of the Bureau for the election to lead the committee. From the outset of the pandemic, the Peacebuilding Commission adjusted its program of work and served as a platform in support of urgent national, regional, and global responses to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on development and peacebuilding and build back better in countries under its consideration. In its advisory, bridging, and convening roles and the commitment to share lessons learned to improve outcomes, the PPC has been since its founding guided by national ownership in peacebuilding, sharing of expertise to build capacities, and pooling of resources and solutions, which are also the South-South and Triangle Cooperation's foundational principles and objectives. As evidenced at PBC meetings on the impact of COVID-19 on peacebuilding efforts, as well as the annual PBC ECOSOC meeting in 2020 and the 2020 Security Council PBC informal interactive dialogue, the Commission highlighted the need for nationally led and inclusive responses, global solidarity, and South-South and Triangle cooperation to collectively combat the pandemic's impact and build the foundation for achieving better results on the SDGs by 2030. Within the context of the 2005 PBC founding resolutions and the 2030 agenda, the PBC has been scaling up its facilitation of partnerships, including regional cooperation and South-South Triangle cooperation. In follow-up to the BAPA Plus 40 outcome in September 2019, the Commission convened an ambassadorial level meeting on South-South and Triangle cooperation for peacebuilding and sustaining peace, and also identified the PBC and also identified in the PBC 2021 program of work as one of its priorities to explore ways of supporting the role of South-South cooperation in peace building and sustaining peace. During 2020 and 2021, PBC country-specific, regional, and thematic engagements have served as an effective platform for sharing context-specific knowledge, expertise, and good practice, improving coordination and enhancing regional cooperation to mitigate the impact of COVID-19, ensure protection of hard-won gains in peace building, and accelerate achievement of the SDGs. Most recently, in a May 2021 press statement issued on institution building, the Commission recognized South-South and Triangle cooperation modality as a valuable approach in efforts to build back better from crises and conflict. Furthermore, in my remarks to the 2021 Aswan Forum for Sustainable Peace and Development, the Commission called for stronger support for African Union-owned and led post-conflict reconstruction and development efforts, and in that regard, welcomed the establishment of the AU Center for Post-Conflict Reconstruction and Development in Cairo as a positive step, while emphasizing the South-South and Triangle cooperation principle of national ownership. The PBC has given priority to including perspectives and recommendations from conflict-affected countries that have hosted peacekeeping, political, and humanitarian missions and undergoing transitions. Excellencies, the Secretary General in his 2018 report on peace building and sustaining peace noted that while financial support for peace building activities is indispensable, the contribution of in-kind resources can also be significant. The Secretary General mentioned that I encouraged United Nations senior leadership to support South-South and Triangle cooperation in peace building. PPC has created opportunities for in-kind exchanges of expertise, while its members have also committed financial resources, including by non-traditional donors. South-South and Trilateral cooperation funding mechanisms, while small, have a catalyzing impact. The Peacebuilding Fund, similar to the PBC, has played a critical role in enabling partnership and broader coalitions for sustaining peace. In my role as a PBC chair, I will continue to facilitate member states' coordination of innovative and full-range peacebuilding financing proposals, including those set out by the Secretary General in his 2018 report, in order to ensure predictability and sustainability of peacebuilding funding. Excellencies, the growing recognition of South-South and Trilateral cooperation as an important modality of international cooperation in support of national priorities has resulted in increased interest from member states to enhance support for highlighting South-South and Trilateral cooperation for peacebuilding and sustaining peace in the future work of PBC and the reformed UN system. Building on the gains achieved, the effective implementation of the UN system-wide strategy on South-South and Trilateral cooperation for sustainable development 2020-2024 and its action plan, as well as the commitment of dedicated resources, would be necessary to ensure more coherent and coordinated support by the UN system for South-South and Trilateral cooperation across all pillars. To conclude, the PBC mandate has positioned it as a political platform for promoting experience sharing between countries which have undergone peacebuilding progresses and those who are engaged in or embarking on similar processes. Drawing on its unique composition of key actors from the North and the South, as well as its bridging, convening, and advisory roles, the Commission is well positioned to advance UN systems support to South-South and Trilateral cooperation across all pillars, in collaboration with the UN Committee, South-South Committee, and UNDP for enhanced partnerships and accelerating progress toward achievement of the SDGs. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and allow me now to speak on my at some point on my national capacity. After concluding my statement as chair of the PBC, allow me to deliver the following remarks in my national capacity. At the outset, Egypt aligns itself with the statement delivered by Guinea on behalf of the group of G77 and China. I would like to convey to you, Chair and the Bureau, the full support of my delegation in conducting our deliberations to successful conclusions. I would like to express our appreciation to the UNDP Administrator and the Director in charge of the UN Office of South-South Cooperation and their teams for their tireless efforts in advancing our work, and my full appreciation to the Committee on South-South Cooperation. Today, after more than 40 years from Buenos Aires Plan of Action, we have new and expanding opportunities to harness the developing countries' potentials. In fact, the past decades demonstrated the power of South-South cooperation driven by the spirit of solidarity, respect of national sovereignty, and equal partnerships. On the opposite side, the Global South continues to face challenges, mostly in strengthening national capacities, ensuring suitable evaluation and monitoring, and in providing adequate funding for South-South cooperation, as well as harnessing digital economy and its positive impacts towards structural change in developing countries. In this vein, we reiterate the long-standing position that South-South cooperation can never be substitute for official development assistance, nor replacing the responsibilities of the global North. Mr. President, Egypt's vision for South-South cooperation is based on a human-centered approach. We aim and work to improve the human capacities in our continent, Africa, through empowering African communities towards better future by helping our sisters and brothers and harnessing their own capacities and resources based on the feedback of the local communities, The more we test, the more we learn, the more our module matures. We work either directly, bilaterally, with the target country or through triangular cooperation in partnership between Egypt and other developmental parties. We take into consideration the sustainability of our activities and give due diligence to the circular economy oriented, to be circular economy oriented. Once COVID-19 affected the world, Egypt was aware that such multidimensional crisis will impose disproportionate impact on developing countries. Thus, in order to address it, we cannot overemphasize the importance of international collaboration, including South-South cooperation. From our perspective, we tackled this issue through an action plan composed of two main channels. First, concentrated efforts to provide Egyptian medical equipment and medicines to the most affected countries, especially in our continent, Africa. Second, the Egyptian Agency of Partnership for Development was the core of the Egyptian cooperation network during the pandemic. It implemented many programs and continues to do so in order to stay hand in hand with African countries to maintain their efforts for development. To realize that, the Egyptian Agency of Partnership for Development took some key actions, such as medical centers in Africa remained open and working in full capacity, and all of the Egyptian medical experts in Africa stayed in their posts, providing the much needed support to the local communities. The agency organized capacity building courses in Egypt during 2020 and 2021 in order to share knowledge and build skills during these difficult times. It conducted virtual training courses to support the e-learning process in many African countries, and the agency began to execute new projects through its program named the Egyptian Initiative for Development in the Nile Basin countries. Mr. President, to conclude, Egypt is committed to engage actively in South-South cooperation in both Africa and other regions of the world. We strongly believe in the strategic perspective to promote South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation as instruments with distinctive characteristics to contribute in the achievement of the 2030 agenda. I thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished permanent representative of Egypt and chair of the PBC for his statement. And I now give the floor to the permanent representative of St. Lucia, His Excellency, Mr. Cosmos Richardson. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Excellencies, at the outset, St. Lucia wishes to align itself with the statement delivered by the distinguished permanent representative of Guinea on behalf of the Group of 77 and China. I congratulate you, the Chair, and the Bureau on your election to lead this high-level committee. My delegation assures you of our commitment to work with you to advance our collective goals. Our leaders came together over 40 years ago to conceive this idea of mutual cooperation at the first conference on technical cooperation among developing countries. Since then, development cooperation among states of the Global South through political dialogue, technical and financial cooperation have driven much of the global economic dynamism that we have experienced. A large number of knowledge and expertise exchanges through programs, projects, and initiatives have transformed lives and helped solve specific problems in countries of the Global South. The 2019 BAPA Plus 40 outcome is a further reflection of the evolution and development in the scope of our cooperation. Mr. Vice President, today we find ourselves at another critical transformative juncture in the world economy. with the compounded challenges of the COVID crisis, climate change, and implementation of the 2030 Agenda, demanding the further evolution of South-South cooperation. While countries are grappling to cope with the negative impacts of these combined challenges, we have witnessed the revelation of innovation and the fostering of partnerships between member states and UN entities in pursuit of the demand-driven nature of South-South cooperation by sharing experiences and extending support. Countries of the Global South have demonstrated their solidarity through the modality of South-South cooperation in order to limit the adverse effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. St. Lucia wishes to highlight a prime example and to commend the government of India, who responded rapidly at the advent of the pandemic through the India-UN Development Partnership Fund, facilitated by the UN Office for South-South Cooperation, to provide urgent grant aid and support St. Lucia and many other developing countries. These resources contributed to national efforts to respond to the disastrous multidimensional effects of the COVID crisis. Mr. Vice President, it is the considered view of my delegation that our current crisis context can be a useful catalyst in promoting enhanced capacity development and accentuating the principles of South-South cooperation. Actions taken, including the mobilization of resources and support to countries for the formulation of policies and strategies for social and economic security, have shown meaningful results on the ground. In this decade of action, the world demands urgent action by stakeholders at all levels to mitigate the health, economic, and social consequences arising from the pandemic and formulate strategies to move ahead. Over the years, South-South cooperation has offered notable solutions to our shared development challenges. Therefore, it has a crucial role to play in our current context. We applaud the work done so far to enhance the role and impact of the UN Office for South-South Cooperation and improve the coordination and coherence of UN system support to South-South and triangular cooperation in order to maximize its development impact in the context of the 2030 Agenda and the COVID recovery. According to the Secretary General's report, only 6 out of 27 UN entities have a specific South-South cooperation strategy in place. There is indeed more work that needs to be done if we are to meet the demands of our time. Mr. Vice President, South-South cooperation is a symbol of solidarity among the people and countries of the South. It embodies the spirit of unity, cooperation, and mutual assistance among developing countries, and is an important driving force for global development. Therefore, in order for us to accelerate SDG implementation while recovering from the COVID crisis, we have to utilize all the capabilities for us to work together to develop our cooperation and to address issues which are key for us to transform our developing economies and achieve the sustainable development goals at the national level for our respective countries. I thank you, Mr. Vice President.
I thank the distinguished permanent representative of St. Lucia. The next speaker on my list is Her Excellency Mrs. Rubab Fatima, permanent representative of Bangladesh. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you. I thank you, Mr. Chair, and my warmest congratulations to you and all members of the Bureau. I also thank the Secretary General and the UNDP Administrator for their comprehensive reports. Bangladesh aligns itself with the statement of the G77, and I wish to make a few additional points in my national capacity. Mr. Chairman, the countries of the Global South have enhanced cooperation on various fronts to achieve the 2030 Agenda, following the HLC decision in 2016, as well as the BAPA Plus 40 commitments. Since then, the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the whole landscape of global cooperation. This session of HLC provides us with an important opportunity to explore the implementation progress of BAPA Plus 40, especially now as we build back from the pandemic. Mr. Chair, we consider South-South and triangular cooperation as a vital driver of our development. In the BAPA Plus 40 conference, my foreign minister proposed to establish a forum of the ministers of development or finance and of foreign affairs of the South to take forward our collaborative work. He also announced setting up a South-South Knowledge and Innovation Center in Dhaka. The center will aim to co-create solutions to address the pressing challenges of the South, and that includes technology transformation, reaping the benefits of the fourth industrial revolution, sharing innovative practices, leveraging STI and SDGs implementation, and I hope that we'll have the support of this group for that proposal. The COVID-19 pandemic, Mr. Chair, has jeopardized decades of our hard-earned development gains and implementation of Agenda 2030. Yet, amid the tumult and turbulence of the pandemic, some rare opportunities have emerged in certain areas such as trade and investment, regional integration, and digital inclusion. In this regard, South-South cooperation can contribute to the exchange of innovations and expanding partnerships among countries and UN entities. Alongside that, we must step up our efforts with clear focus in areas that are severely impacted by COVID-19, such as health, education, decent jobs, agriculture, and climate vulnerabilities. Let me share a few specific thoughts in this regard. First, while the global north has set itself on a fast recovery track, the LDCs and other vulnerable countries in the south remain furthest behind. The vaccine coverage in those countries is a mere 2% or less. It is imperative now to eliminate this burgeoning vaccines divide and declare COVID-19 vaccine as a global public good. Enhanced SSTC can play an important role in this regard. LDCs with large production capacities of pharmaceuticals and vaccines, such as my own country, Bangladesh, can contribute to this effort if the technology is shared. Alongside, we need robust investment in health infrastructures in the global south. Secondly, for the first time since 1998, we see an alarming rise in global poverty. Inequality has also risen dramatically. The countries in the global south, including my own country, have led many innovative solutions to fight these challenges. There must be better networks to share ideas and experiences for durable solutions to these problems. We need targeted investments in the areas of productive capacity building, job creation, gender mainstreaming, and better integration with global economy. Thirdly, the COVID-19 pandemic has once again revealed the stark economic disparities between the global north and the global south. The voices of the South in defining the course of actions to finance the recovery efforts remain far from equal. We must forge stronger collaboration among the developing countries to close this gap, including through the new generation financial institutions, enhanced trade and investment, financial and technological inclusion, etc. Fourthly, Mr. Chairman, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a drastic impact on the export earnings of the countries in the South due to the reduced price, falling demand, and supply chain disruptions. We need a multi-pronged approach to revive the trade and investment situations in countries in the South. And this can be achieved by promoting South-South value chains for economic growth and enhanced regional trade and development initiatives. Fifthly, agricultural output is much lower in the LDCs in comparison, even with other developing countries. Climate change is aggravating the situation. Food security is also a rising challenge in this pandemic. To overcome this, we need targeted technology support, including through SSTC, the UN Technology Bank for LDCs, and etc. Finally, Mr. Chair, distinguished colleagues, we must leverage SSTC to bridge the digital divide and ensure universal access to remote learning and digital health services to alleviate the fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic in education and the health sectors. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank the distinguished permanent representative of Bangladesh for her important statement, and I now invite His Excellency Mr. Omar Hilale, permanent representative of the Kingdom of Morocco, to make a statement. Excellence, vous avez la parole.
Vous m'entendez maintenant?
Can you hear me now?
Monsieur le vice-président,
Mr. Vice Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen,
I would like to congratulate you as well as the other members of the Bureau for your election to lead this high-level committee. And I would like to seize this opportunity to commend the work and efforts done by Argentina in the field of South-South cooperation. You can count on the full support of Morocco to you and to the Bureau members in the upcoming work of the committee. We thank the Secretariat for the substantive documentation prepared for this session and for the effort done by the UN Office for South-South Cooperation in the preparation of the HLC on South-South cooperation under the current challenging circumstances. Sir President, le Royaume du Maroc réaffirme son fort engagement envers la coopération sud-sud et en fait l'une des piliers majeurs de sa politique étrangère. Conformément à la vision éclairée de Sa Majesté le Roi Mohamed VI, qui accorde une attention privilégiée à la coopération sud-sud, notre pays a érigé la réalité.
And our country has erected the development in developing countries, especially in Africa, Pacific, and the Caribbean, as a priority of its action for climate. Moreover, His Majesty has personally committed to the emergence of Africa through implementation for a series of initiatives, actions, and projects with a strong human and social impact. He's visited more than 30 countries, and more than 1,000 agreements, South-South, have been signed between Morocco and African countries. It's in that context that the Kingdom of Morocco has committed with all of its institutions, private and public sector, and civil society, to contribute to the socioeconomic development of the continent. Moreover, Morocco is linked to the countries of the Pacific and the Caribbean through partnership agreements and South-South cooperation, impacting a number of areas, including the agriculture, tourist, capacity building, and training sectors. Mr. Vice Chair, the Kingdom has also committed to implementing recommendations of the document through action from the Moroccan Agency for International Cooperation and to expedite development of effective partnership with other cooperation agencies at the international level, especially with Africa and Latin American countries, the private sector and civil society. Our country has also put South-South cooperation at the very heart of its cooperation strategy to grapple with the COVID-19 pandemic. In April 2020, His Majesty launched a pragmatic action geared to sister nations in Africa, geared to the sharing of experiences and good practicing, and on operationalization in different phases of the pandemic. This initiative was operationalized with 21 African countries and the African Union Commission through the supplying of more than 240,000 tons of medical supplies to grapple with the pandemic. Morocco is sparing no effort to accompany brother nations in Africa in their efforts. Mr. Vice Chair, climate action continues to be at the heart of the Moroccan strategy of South-South cooperation. We launched with Ethiopia the Coalition for Access to Renewable Energy during the 2019 Summit for Climate Action. This initiative is geared to guaranteeing 100% access to the least developed countries and other developing nations between now and 2030. Based on solidarity and fundamental values of South-South cooperation, we are convinced that this coalition will significantly contribute to the efforts to bring about sustainable recovery for our countries. Morocco has made training an important element in cooperation programs through the Moroccan Agency for International Cooperation. Morocco grants yearly more than 2,000 study grants to countries of sub-Saharan Africa, the Arab world, and other regions such as the Caribbean. Recently, we updated our energy plan, a strategic plan, by including training online of more than 1,800 students at the university level for 2020 and 2021. Given the context, social distancing opposed by the current pandemic. Before concluding, Mr. Vice Chair, I'd just like to indicate that the action of the international community in the context of South-South cooperation must go beyond declarations of intention and lead to concrete policies. Indeed, South-South cooperation can only have a real impact through palpable action based on solidarity on the ground with positive consequences for all countries concerned as a whole. And led by the spirit of international solidarity, our efforts are working in that direction, especially with regard to action to implement the SDGs and the current context with enormous global challenges before us. And finally, it's worth repeating that South-South cooperation must be strengthened by North-South and triangular cooperation, which is unavoidable.
For the 2021 HLC on South-South cooperation and successful and consensual conclusions for its outcome. I thank you very much, Mr. Vice President.
I thank you, Excellency, and I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Sofiane Mimouni, Permanent Representative of Algeria. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Allow me at the outset to extend my sincere congratulations to Her Excellency Maria del Carmen Squaf, Permanent Representative of Argentina, and the members of the Bureau upon their election to the high-level committee, and look forward to working closely and constructively with you. While aligning itself with the statement delivered by the Permanent Representative of Guinea on behalf of the G77 and China, my delegation would like to make the following observation in its national capacity. Mr. Vice President, since the Buenos Aires Plan of Action for promoting and implementing technical cooperation among developing countries, South-South cooperation has gained momentum and has shown encouraging trends. The current session of the High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation represent a great opportunity as we embark on our collective journey towards a sustainable future and building back better in this decade of action and the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. This crisis reinforced the urgent need to scale up our efforts to maximize the potentials of the South-South and triangular cooperation so that no one will be left behind. In this regard, the G77 and China, as a key platform of South-South cooperation, play an important role to help Global South to overcome all the challenges with cleverness and succeed in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda in its entirety. The third summit, the South Summit, that will be held in Uganda this year will certainly offer a great opportunity to present the priorities and the challenges of the Global South related to strengthening multilateralism, eradicating poverty, women's empowerment, and addressing the inequalities. I would like to seize this opportunity to extend Algeria's thanks to the government of Uganda for accepting to host this important event. Mr. Vice President, as enshrined in the BAPA plus 40 outcome document, the South-South cooperation is the manifestation of solidarity among countries of the South and a powerful driver for innovation, efficiency, effectiveness, and sustainability in responding to national development challenges and achieving the internationally agreed development goals. It is undeniable that the efforts made by the South-South cooperation have contributed to the achievement of development projects in all their dimensions, including eradicating poverty, ending hunger, addressing the adverse effect of climate change, women's empowerment, building resilient infrastructure, enhancing financing for development, and ensuring adequate humanitarian assistance. While acknowledging the progress registered in this regard, we must recognize that there is still a long way to go to reach a cooperation that meets our expectations. We believe that more efforts should be made to further strengthen South-South and triangular cooperation, and therefore all efforts should be gathered in this direction, bearing in mind that South-South and triangular cooperation are a complement to and not a substitute to North-South cooperation. Furthermore, all partnership should, in our view, be enhanced to help our countries reaching sustainable development that can only be achieved under the fundamental conditions of equity, social progress, respect for sovereignty, and equality in economic and political relations with the countries of the North. Mr. Vice President, Algeria has integrated South-South cooperation into its development strategy, not only as a contribution to the achievement of national, but also regional and international development goals. At this juncture, Algeria intends to forge innovative and inclusive partnerships by launching concrete mechanisms of cooperation aimed at reaching sustained economic and commercial interaction between the countries of the South, in particular African countries. Let me conclude by reiterating Algeria's commitment and strong support to the South-South and triangular cooperation. And I thank you, Mr. Vice President.
I thank you, Your Excellency, Permanent Representative of Algeria, and I now give the floor to Her Excellency Mrs. Matu Joini, Permanent Representative of South Africa. Excellency, you have the floor.
We will, like to congratulate the Chair and the Bureau for their election into the high-level committee. South Africa looks forward to working with the Bureau and the Chair. Similarly, we thank the UNDP Administrator and the Director of the UN Office on South-South Cooperation for their continued support and hard work in preparing for this 20th session. South Africa aligns itself with the statement delivered by Guinea on behalf of the G77 and China, and I would like to make the following points in my national capacity. We welcome this opportunity to engage on accelerating the achievement of SDGs through meaningful implementation of the Buenos Aires Plan of Action while responding to COVID-19 pandemic and other crises. South Africa views South-South cooperation as vital to ensure the creation of political, economic, and social conditions necessary for the fight against poverty and underdevelopment of the South, and to address the challenges of economic development through cooperation and partnerships. We therefore view our partnerships with countries of the South as critical for advancing the African agenda and central in addressing the challenges facing Africa and the developing world. I'd like to highlight the following 3 points. Firstly, growing inequality within and among states threatens the achievement of SDGs, which are essential for the creation of a more inclusive world where no one is left behind. While COVID-19 has thrown us off track, it has provided an opportunity to build a better and fairer. We do so facing the reality that immense resources that we have directed to fighting the coronavirus pandemic have severely set back our ability to realize the SDGs. The pandemic has also highlighted the extreme vulnerability of our national health system and our economies against a disease burden of this magnitude, and shown us once more that investing in healthcare is key to economic prosperity and progress in human development. The strength of South-South cooperation is demonstrated with the launch of the African Union and African CDC in April 2021, and the partnerships for African vaccine manufacturing. Through this initiative, the AU and the Africa CDC seek to, among others, establish vaccine development and manufacturing capacity and capability in Africa for public health security and to ensure equitable access to vaccines for Africans. We call on the international community to work with the AU and its assigned COVID-19 champions, President Ramaphosa and President Kagame, as they steer the AU towards a meaningful realization of the partnerships for African vaccine manufacturing initiative. Furthermore, to show our commitment to equitable access to technology, vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics, and to do away with the health and vaccine nationalism, we must review the international intellectual property and patent regime and determine how it should be applied in the event of global health emergencies. In this regard, we call on all countries to support a temporary waiver of WTO agreements on TRIPS to enable countries to produce COVID-19 vaccines. Such a waiver will enable developing countries to expand their pharmaceutical sectors, to facilitate technology and skills transfer, and above all, to save lives. Secondly, on the role of South-South cooperation in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda, we reiterate the importance and relevance of BAPA +40 in creating conditions conducive to promoting South-South cooperation, pursuing sustained economic growth, and building national and collective self-reliance. In the context of the IBSA, India, Brazil, South Africa Fund, South Africa contributes towards international efforts to eradicate poverty and end hunger in developing countries and the global South. Other initiatives include our cooperation within BRICS and the new National Development Bank, through which financing for infrastructure and sustainable development project is provided. Additionally, South Africa's African Renaissance Fund remains an important vehicle for providing support to the continent in peace building, conservation of cultural heritage, agriculture and food security, capacity building, and other forms of technical cooperation, as well as humanitarian aid. Thirdly, we wish to reiterate that North-South cooperation is still core for development cooperation, and that South-South and triangular cooperation are complementary and not a substitute thereof. To unlock the potential of developing countries, a robust global partnership with developed countries remains key. We wish to underline that in recognizing the different levels of development, official development assistance remains vital for developing countries. We wish to underline that the role of the private sector is also essential and welcomed due to the vast resources that it possesses, which could support developing countries' national efforts in achieving the SDGs. There is a need for more foreign direct investment in developing countries, especially on infrastructure development that will support national efforts in strengthening industrial capacities. It must be underscored that the role of the private sector should complement and not replace official development assistance as developing countries transition and expand their industrial base and transition from aid to trade. The role of multilateral trade in the growth and economic development of countries, particularly developing countries, cannot be overemphasized. We recognize the significant contribution of regional trade and its ability to promote sustainable development. Through operationalization of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement in January of 2021, Africa signaled her determination to increase manufacturing and industrial capacity to trade in goods and products produced in Africa. But much work still needs to be done to achieve this vision. Excellencies, in conclusion, South Africa believes that we can achieve more if we work together as the international community. It is within our means to meet the aspiration of the Agenda 2030. And we look forward to the UN system-wide strategy on South-South and triangular cooperation as it works towards the enhancement of the role of the UN Office for South-South Cooperation and to galvanize the expertise of many UN organizations to support the South-South initiatives of member states. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished permanent representative of South Africa for her statement, and I now invite His Excellency Mr. Enrique A. Manalo, permanent representative of the Philippines, to make a statement. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. At the outset, I wish to join others in congratulating Ambassador Maria del Carmen Squef and the Bureau members for their excellent work in facilitating this important meeting. Mr. Chair, Philippines aligns itself with the statement of Guinea on behalf of the G77 and China. We thank the Secretary General for his report on the progress made on the implementation of Decision 19/1 of the High-Level Committee and proposals to advance South-South and triangular cooperation as an important element of the global development cooperation to achieve the 2030 Agenda. We also thank the UNDP Administrator for his report on the review of progress made in implementing the Buenos Aires Plan of Action, the New Direction Strategy for South-South Cooperation, and the Nairobi Outcome Document. We look forward to the presentation of the UN system-wide strategy on South-South and triangular cooperation for sustainable development, and we thank the UN Office for South-South Cooperation for its valuable work, including its active support in lending assistance to its partners in the Global South in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Chair, I wish to highlight the following 3 points regarding our appreciation of the crucial role of and contribution of South-South cooperation on the implementation of the SDGs. First of all, South-South cooperation, or SSC, provides an effective and complementary modality for cooperation among developing countries, including in the Asia and the Pacific. Given similarities in circumstances, government capacities, and views on national development strategies. The proximity of experience is a key catalyst in promoting capacity development and in strengthening national policies to advance SSC and triangular cooperation, including through the sharing of knowledge, lessons learned, and good practices. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the potential of science and rapid technological change to address exacerbated and emerging challenges. Therefore, partnerships that accelerate and strengthen developing countries' recovery, response, and resilience against COVID-19 and future external shocks and epidemics are crucial. For the Philippines, this includes strengthened collaboration at the regional and global levels on improving disaster risk reduction and management, supporting MSMEs, and ensuring food security. Secondly, for middle-income countries like the Philippines, understanding the role South-South cooperation requires new approaches to the way we measure progress towards sustainable development. Beyond the concern that access to concessional finance is reduced as the country's income grows, middle-income countries continue to face particular challenges and intersecting vulnerabilities. Nevertheless, as a middle-income country, the Philippines assumes its twin responsibility of using resources wisely to sustain its economic growth trajectory, while at the same time dedicating efforts to help the less developed countries in their own journey towards sustainable development. We have given and will continue to provide assistance to our friends in ASEAN and the larger Asia Pacific through the Technical Cooperation Council of the Philippines and other government agencies' initiatives. The ultimate aim is to help improve lives through capacity building projects in the crucial areas of agriculture, science and technology, education, and MSMEs. Thirdly, we reaffirm the key role of the United Nations funds, programs, specialized agencies, UN regional commissions, including the UN country teams, in supporting and promoting South-South cooperation. In this regard, we welcome and support the proposed establishment in Manila of the new South-South and Triangular Cooperation Facility, with key priorities on mapping South-South triangular cooperation activities and initiatives, developing profiles of potential partners, developing the business matchmaking process by identifying possible linkages with other countries, and preparing a terms of reference for a regional conference. Finally, Mr. Chairman, the Philippines remains steadfast in its commitment to South-South cooperation and looks forward to the successful outcome of this meeting, including the consensual adoption of the outcome document. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished permanent representative of the Philippines for his statement. And I now invite His Excellency Mr. Bassam Sabag, permanent representative of the Syrian Arab Republic, to make a statement. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, Mr. Vice Chair. My delegation is pleased to participate in this session of the High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation to review the progress made in implementing many important documents, including the Nairobi and Buenos Aires outcome documents, to enhance cooperation amongst our countries and to revitalize joint action between developing countries on one hand and between them and other countries on the other, in order to support the implementation of the 2030 SDGs. Cooperation between our countries is a manifestation of solidarity amongst our peoples at the bilateral and multilateral levels. This cooperation is also a motive to achieve welfare and national prosperity. It is also a strong driver of innovation, efficiency, sustainability, and growth. It is also an enabler of integration of our efforts to achieve the internationally recognized development goals. Naturally speaking, the work of this group and the review and development of its pillars does not aim at excluding or discriminating against any other party, but rather it is an outcome dictated by the common development challenges facing our countries that undermine their ability to achieve many of their development goals. Mr. Vice Chair, the Nairobi outcome document underscores that cooperation, South-South cooperation, should be premised on the principles of national sovereignty, national ownership, equality, non-interference in the domestic affairs, as well as refraining from imposing conditionalities or diktats, and also achieving mutual benefit. benefits. These are well-established principles, if complied with, would lead to best results of development cooperation among the UN membership and in the manner envisaged to ensure that no one is left behind or no nation is left behind. We also reiterate the importance of triangular cooperation between the South, the North, and international organizations to implement development cooperation projects and programs in developing countries and to support the efforts of the national authorities to achieve sustainable development through rendering of financial support and exchange of expertise and lessons learned, as well as modern technology. We also reiterate the need for this triangular cooperation to be consistent with the principles of cooperation that we have just mentioned, and also in accordance with national priorities and policies of our countries. Mr. Vice Chair, the spread of COVID-19 early last year posed a global public health threat and a serious challenge to all member states, and a more serious challenge to the countries of the South in particular. Today, more than a year and a half later, human solidarity continues to be below the required level, whether in connection with cooperation to address the impact of this pandemic or with regard to access to vaccines. In this respect, COVAX facility can, within the framework of cooperation among our countries and triangle cooperation, can be an enabler to ensure global access to vaccines. However, it is per se or alone will not be sufficient to ensure overcoming the pandemic and its negative consequences. Therefore, my delegation calls for global, equitable, quick, and affordable access to vaccines, as well as access to detection equipment and healthcare services, and the need to mobilize efforts to support affected sectors in our countries, on the other hand. What makes it even worse for some countries, including my country, Syria, is that this pandemic and its negative consequences were coupled with unilateral coercive measures imposed by some countries of the North, which undermine the ability of our national institutions to address the impact of the pandemic and provide health services as well as the basic needs of our citizens. Moreover, our countries continue to seek the implementation of sustainable development goals. In this respect, we underscore the need to lift these inhumane and illegal measures that violate the principles of international law and the provisions of the Charter, as well as the human rights instruments. In closing, the Syrian Arab Republic reiterates that it looks forward to the development of equitable global partnerships underpinned by respect for the principles of international law, the Charter provisions, notably national sovereignty. And we call for shoring up the efforts of the Syrian state institutions to overcome the challenges imposed by the terrorist war against Syria and to address the new consequences caused by the spread of COVID-19 to achieve sustainable development goals. And thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
I thank the distinguished permanent representative of Syria. The next speaker on my list is His Excellency Mr. Vitavas Srivihok, permanent representative of Thailand. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, Thailand aligns with the statement by Guinea on behalf of the Group of 77 and China. This session of the High-Level Committee is a critical milestone to take stock of progress on and support for South-South and Triangular Cooperation. This is the first session of the committee after we endorsed the Buenos Aires outcome document of the second high-level United Nations Conference on South-South Cooperation, or BAPA Plus 40. Furthermore, the session is an opportunity to highlight the importance of South-South and Triangular Cooperation in the response to COVID-19. Thailand welcomed the progress made thus far, including the establishment of the UN Interagency Mechanism for South-South and Triangular Cooperation, and the launch of the UN system-wide strategy on South-South and Triangular Cooperation. I would like to share some of Thailand's reflections on South-South and Triangular Cooperation. First, Thailand has placed South-South and Triangular Cooperation as a cornerstone of our development cooperation. Through Thailand International Cooperation Agency, or TICA, we as an emerging development partner have developed strategies for South-South and Triangular Cooperation to support and accelerate the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals across borders. Thailand has focused on capacity building and human resource development of fellow development countries and serve as a knowledge hub in the areas where we have expertise, including in public health, agriculture, climate change, education, and the application of the homegrown development approach of the sufficiency economy philosophy for sustainable development. Second, COVID-19 has exposed the fragility of our society and the need to build back better by creating a more sustainable world, which is based on a more resilient foundation. In this regard, Thailand's South-South and Triangular Cooperation strategy focuses on health security, job security, food security, and energy and environmental security, since these are prerequisites for countries to get back on track to achieve SDGs. At the regional level, in November 2020, Thailand, together with Indonesian UNSCAP, UN Office for South-South Cooperation, or UNOS, host the third Asia-Pacific Director General Forum on South-South and Triangular Cooperation, which focuses on health emergency responses. At the bilateral level, Thailand has engaged our partner countries in a flagship project on strengthening preparedness and response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which aims at sharing knowledge and improving cross-border medical networking system, public health preparedness, and communication channel in public health emergency response. We have created a TICA's knowledge bank, which is an online platform of knowledge from Thailand's public health experts, and conducted the annual international training course program on COVID-19 related topics with participants from 30 countries worldwide. Third, in moving forward, Thailand believes that achieving sustainable development requires shifting towards growth that foster the balance of economic growth, social inclusion, and environmental protection. We therefore have been applying the Biocircular Green, or BCG, economy model, and look forward to exploring the model with our partner countries as an alternative strategy for a sustainable, inclusive, and resilient recovery. Mr. Vice President, to conclude, Thailand reiterates its firm commitment to further promote South-South and Triangular Cooperation. We look forward to advocating dialogue and sharing knowledge and lessons learned at the 11th Global South-South Development Expo or GSSD Expo, which Thailand will be co-hosting, together with the UNOS and SCAP in Bangkok later this year. I thank you, Mr. Vice President.
I thank the distinguished permanent representative of Thailand for his statement. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Amrit Bahadur Ray, permanent representative of Nepal. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Mr. Vice President, at the outset, I'd like to thank Madam President and all other committee officials for convening this 20th session of High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation, which will provide an opportunity to reflect on the progress made in the implementation of the BAPA Plus 40 outcome document and highlight the importance of South-South cooperation for SDGs implementation and resilient recovery from the pandemic. Mr. Vice President, we are meeting at the historic crossroad. Never before has there been a moment so simultaneously perilous and promising. The COVID-19 pandemic has threatened to reverse our hard-earned development gains, but this has also reminded us to rethink and revamp our global cooperation framework to rebuild our economy better than ever. South-South cooperation plays an important role at this juncture, as it is a manifestation of solidarity among peoples and countries of the Global South and their aspirations of collective self-reliance. It complements our economic development and bolsters our efforts for the attainment of internationally agreed development goals, including the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And more than ever, we need collective political determination, solidarity, and cooperation at global level to fight this global health crisis and its multifarious ramifications. The Global South need to further deepen their cooperation in scale, in scope, in quality, and its effectiveness. However, we must not forget that South-South cooperation should not be seen as the substitute for North-South cooperation. Rather, it is only a complement to it. Mr. Vice President, Nepal accords high importance to South-South cooperation in realizing our national development aspirations of prosperous Nepal, happy Nepali. Nepal is truly grateful to the government of India and the government of China for their support of vaccine and other medical support to fight COVID-19 pandemic. And we are equally grateful to all other countries, including United Nations Office for South-South cooperation, for their support in this trying time. Let me highlight some key forward-looking aspects deemed important to consider at this session. First, some members in Global South, particularly countries in special situations, are lagging behind far despite their development efforts. They need additional support and cooperation in the spirit of our collective commitment of leaving no one behind. Second, we must expand and intensify sharing of good practices, knowledge, and technical expertise through South-South and triangular cooperation to achieve SDGs, including to mitigate the profound effects of the pandemic. Third, there is urgent need of enhanced level of North-South as well as South-South and triangular cooperation to ensure equitable and universal access to COVID-19 vaccines to contain the pandemic. And the spirit of no one is safe until everyone is safe should be the basis of our global cooperation. And fourth, we call for all developed nations to fulfill their ODA commitment as we continue to fight against COVID-19 pandemic and implement the 2030 Agenda and the Paris Agreement. Fifth, mainstreaming South-South and triangular cooperation into the United Nations Development System is equally important. And we would like to thank UNDP for being the conduit to mobilize this cooperation through UN development system. Finally, South-South and triangular cooperation should continue to be guided by the principles of respect for national sovereignty, national ownership, and leadership, and focus on country-specific needs and priorities. To conclude, Mr. Vice President, Nepal strongly calls for the fulfillment of ODA commitments, strong cooperation and partnership for effective implementation of 2030 Agenda, including through the South-South cooperation to support the countries that need the most. Nepal remains actively engaged with the international community from both North and South, as we need robust international support measures for our smooth LDC graduation process in the wake of pandemic's fallout. I thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Excellency, Mr. Permanent Representative of Nepal, I thank you for your statement. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Tijani Muhammad Bande, Permanent Representative of Nigeria. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear you.
Okay, can you see me?
We cannot see you, but we can hear you.
Can you see me now? No?
No, we can't see you at this stage. We cannot see you.
Okay, so I don't know what to do. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay, so at least so that we don't lose both. Let me then speak. So,
thank you, Excellency.
No problem. These things happen. Mr. President, Madam President, let me congratulate you and members of the Bureau on your election and uphold the Worldwide Bureau for its outstanding achievements. Nigeria welcomes the convening of the 20th session of the High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation. Nigeria aligns with the statement read by Guinea on behalf of G73 and China. And I thank you, Mr. Vice President, for chairing this session. We also thank Argentina for its leadership on this matter relating to South-South and for its hosting of the last major meeting of our group. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can still hear you, Excellency.
Oh, okay, that's fine. My delegation welcomes the report of South-South and triangular cooperation and notes the progress made since the previous report. It's pertinent to note that the use of the South-South cooperation modality has gained general acceptance and is being systematically mainstreamed in Africa and elsewhere. We also agree with the Secretary General that the growing interest of governments of developing countries to promote partnership through mutual learning and sharing of knowledge, experience, and best practices further highlight the importance of South-South cooperation in addressing persistent development challenges towards achieving the 2030 Agenda. Indeed, in the case of Africa, it furthers also our achievement of the 2063 Agenda of the African Union. Mr. Chairman, Nigeria sees South-South cooperation as an important contributor to the promotion of the ideals, norms, and principles of international cooperation. Nigeria's technical aid core scheme, which has been operating successfully for the last 3 decades, which drive the country's South-South cooperation initiative at the sub-regional, regional, and interregional levels, challenges the commonly held perception that Africa is only a recipient of aid. Indeed, it is one volunteer service of its kind currently operated by an African country and worthy of emulation. The scheme's positive contribution to socio-economic development of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries is part of Nigeria's commitment to South-South cooperation. I must add that Nigeria has also learned a lot from its work with and in sister countries in Africa, the Caribbean, and the Pacific. Indeed, this is one reason why we are doing it. We have been able to learn from it in sending teachers, nurses, agronomists, and similar professionals to work in in countries around the world, especially in the SCP, to help in their development, even as we also need their support in many areas. Indeed, Nigeria appreciates the work many countries are doing, both developing and developed, in furthering both South-South cooperation and also in supporting triangular cooperation. These are all important, and I'm very glad the point has been made by previous speakers. Now, being a process that takes place under similar social context and voluntary circumstances, my delegation wishes to emphasize the values of mutual learning and mutual respect in the solidarity that underpins the agenda of the South-South cooperation. Indeed, it's also the same solidarity that underpins South-South and triangular cooperation. The agenda must, however, continue to be guided by the principle of respect for national sovereignty, national ownership and independence, equality, non-conditionality, non-interference in domestic affairs, and mutual benefit. Indeed, the issue concerning vaccine access brings to the fore the real need to strengthen both South-South and triangular cooperation going forward, both in the area of ICT, because lack of ICT penetration has impacted African educational systems extremely negatively during the pandemic. And going forward, South-South cooperation needs to focus on questions of transfer of technology and partnerships, South-South and triangular, around the question of vaccine development and production, as well as improvement in ICT, especially in the classrooms. Mr. Vice President, we note that during in 2019, the general capital increase of the African Development Bank rose from $93 billion to $208 billion, an increase of 105%. This is demonstrative of Africa Development shareholders' confidence in the bank's prudent financial management, as well as its strategic and operational priorities high-five plan, which seeks to enlighten, feed, industrialize, integrate, and improve livelihoods across Africa. This, I submit, is a key exemplar of South-South cooperation. You can see with its improved capitalization, the African Development Bank is poised to become the primary financier of strategic South-South cooperation initiatives across Africa. This is a significant development on the continent. Nigeria notes with satisfaction United Nations Development Programme's ongoing efforts to improve the management, financial resources, transparency, accountability, and efficiency of the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, as described in the report of the administrator submitted to the high-level committee. We also note the efforts made at implementing the recommendations for the 2016 audit of the office, and would urge more progress with regards to the issues of transparency and efficient management of the resources so far provided. Furthermore, Nigeria supports measures to facilitate and strengthen the work of the office as developing countries navigate the economic and health challenges brought about by COVID-19 pandemic. In this vein, Nigeria commends the office in terms of mobilization of $14.1 million in non-core resources and a swift deployment of $12 million to 31 countries in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. It also encourages stakeholders to redouble their commitment in South-South and triangular cooperation and better coordinate their collective actions toward the implementation of the outcome document as a positive sign of our renewed commitment to South-South and triangular cooperation. I would like to conclude, Excellencies, by recommitting to, by reaffirming Nigeria's continued support and belief in the importance of triangular and South-South cooperation, especially in the context of our recovery efforts post-COVID-19. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished permanent representative of Nigeria. We would now go to His Excellency Mr. Talal Rashid Al Khalifa, Deputy Permanent Representative of Qatar. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you. سعادة المدير التنفيذي لبرنامج الأمم المتحدة للماء أصحاب السعادة.
Executive Director of the UNDP, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies. First of all, we appreciate the efforts made to prepare for this session, and we are pleased to participate in it. We welcome the role of the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation. Excellencies, the current state of the world, including the COVID-19 pandemic, which has undermined the progress achieved over decades, affirms the importance of South-South and triangular cooperation and the genuine opportunity it represents to help countries of the South to achieve sustainable development. In the state of Qatar, the BAPA document, the BAPA outcome document, does represent added value for us to improve this cooperation and to deepen it in order to achieve development and the fulfillment of all. The State of Qatar appreciates the active role of South-South cooperation as an essential basis for Qatar's foreign policy, which has not hesitated to take many steps to strengthen this cooperation and to address common challenges. Through this, in 2005, Qatar conducted the South-South Summit, which led to the final document and which paved the way in 2014 for our chairing of this committee. Through our efforts, we have contributed to South-South cooperation. We want to cooperate actively to the third South-South cooperation in Uganda, which will be a relevant opportunity to add value to all of these efforts. We are convinced of the need for and the effectiveness of South-South cooperation, and through our commitment to getting development assistance as a humane path to reduce the impact of COVID-19, we have supported many local, regional and international organizations. 140 million American dollars, as well as our cooperation from Qatar, above all for countries of the South. Sheikh Hamad Al Thani declared in September 2019 $200 million as assistance for small island developing states and to address climate change. By way of a contribution, we are proud in Qatar to host the 5th conference for the least developed countries in January 2022. We are convinced that the conference will help many countries in the South address these unprecedented challenges and the difficulties faced by the least developed countries. In the coming decade, we will contribute to the creation of resilient communities to address similar crises. We reiterate our commitment to solidarity, cooperation among countries of the South, so as to address these challenges and to implement the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Thank you.
I thank you, Excellency. We will now hear our last speaker for this afternoon, His Excellency Mr. Kimura Tetsuya, Ambassador for Economic, Social, and United Nations Management Affairs at the Permanent Mission of Japan. Please, Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the outset, Japan would like to congratulate the newly elected members of the Bureau of the High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation and thank the organization of today's event, which takes stock of the progress made in implementing the Buenos Aires Plan of Action of the BAPA Plus 40 conference. As confirmed in Japan's Development Cooperation Charter, which sets out the principles of Japan's official development assistance, Japan places special emphasis on developing countries' own initiative, self-help efforts, and self-sustainable growth. In 1975, Japan began a technical training program in collaboration with developing countries to transfer and share development experiences. This was our very first program of triangular cooperation. Through triangular cooperation, we are committed to continue to share Japan's experience and knowledge and to extend dialogue and collaboration among developing and emerging countries, while advocating for mutual learning and self-sustaining development. In addition to our support to individual projects, Japan has also been actively engaged in knowledge sharing on South-South and triangular cooperation. Japan has been supporting the organization of the South-South Cooperation Expo by the UN South-South Cooperation Office, UNOSSC, a forum for knowledge sharing. Japan has also been engaged actively in the high-level forum of Directors General for Development Cooperation over the past 10 years. The Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, co-hosted this year's Director General's Forum with UNOSSC and the Islamic Development Bank under the theme Trends, Opportunities, and Challenges on the Path to Sustainable Development and Strengthening South-South and Triangular Cooperation in the COVID-19 context. Let me share an example of COVID-19 response through triangular cooperation led by Japan. In 2017, JICA has launched a program called PREPARE, that is, Partnership for Building Resilience Against Public Health Emergencies through Advanced Research and Education, which aims to enhance the functions of the infectious disease research institutes and laboratory in 6 African countries and strengthen the capacities of, namely, the Republic of Congo, Gabon, Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, and Zambia. Building on the capacity enhanced through this project, in March this year, Ghana hosted the 3rd country training online regarding the countermeasures against infectious diseases, including COVID-19, and 15 experts from 9 countries in West Africa have participated. This is the first session of the high-level committee to be held after the implementation of UNDS reform, which aims to enhance the coherence and efficiency of UN activities on the ground. In this regard, Japan welcomes the preparation of the system-wide strategy on South-South and triangular cooperation, which aims to provide the system-wide policy orientation to the United Nations entities in order to galvanize a coordinated and coherent approach to policy, programmatic partnership support on South-South and triangular cooperation, and increase impact across United Nations activity at all levels. Japan takes note of measures taken to enhance the organizational governance and performance of the UNOSSC and looks forward to the further enhancement of the performance of its functions, including continuous engagement of UNOSSC towards the operationalization of the strategy. Recognizing the global challenges, including this pandemic, cannot be tackled by a single actor, Japan commits to continuing to share our experiences in development cooperation through triangular cooperation toward the achievement of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and to build back better from the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
I thank the distinguished representative of Japan. It is now after 5 p.m., the scheduled time to close our meeting. So, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, This brings us to the end of this afternoon's plenary meeting. We will resume our meeting and the list of speakers tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. to continue the general discussion on items 2, 3, 4, and 5. The meeting is hereby adjourned.